gonna do something a little different tonight. My buddy has one of these cheaper Kershaw Filter knives. He asked me to sharpen. Since this is a budget knife, I decided, hey, let's do a budget sharpening. This is a Schrade old timer stone I picked up off of Blade HQ. I think I paid roughly $8 or $9 for this, and I also got a Dan's Whetstone aluminum oxide stone. I also paid about the same price for that. So altogether, both stones were under $20. I'm going to use these to sharpen this knife. I've had this stone soaking in water for, I don't know, a couple hours. I'm going to use my mixture of soap, oil, water. This is 4 parts water, 1 part soap, dish soap, and 1 part baby oil. As you can see, my bottle's getting low, so I'm going to refill it. That should get us through. I get asked quite often about this recipe. I did not come up with this. I got this from Caleb McCullough. He is a straight razor YouTuber. He does a lot of videos on straight razor sharpening, as well as shaves of the day and that sort of thing. I'll put a link to his YouTube channel down below. We're gonna get started on this guy. So I had to add a bit of a sharpening notch here. It's real jacked up, but you should have seen this thing when I first got it. The edge came out to about right there. Had to grind it down, had to grind down all that plunge line mess that they had. So we're gonna have to do a little reshaping in the back of the blade here. So I'm going to elevate my angle quite a bit to start. I'm going to get that ground down flat. Now this is just a silicon carbide stone, nothing special. You got a coarse and fine side on it. Like I said, it was very, very economical. And on simpler steels like this, it should just plow right through it, which it is. Got the back of the edge looking good. I just gotta get the belly portion looking halfway decent now. They've really fattened this up. Looks like they changed their angle. Got a nice sized burr. Didn't take long at all. I'm gonna switch sides now. Now you may be thinking this stone is way too coarse to start out on, and if I were just sharpening the knife normally, I would probably agree with that. It's not necessary to start this coarse, but because I'm having to basically grind in the bevel in the back of the edge. I needed something aggressive enough to get through that material and to get through it quickly. And this stone is a perfect fit for that. And the fact that it's a budget stone is just an added benefit. And this side went much quicker. I'm already done. I've got a nice fat burr. I'm going to flip again. I'm going to break some of this burr off, cut some of it off. I don't expect I'll get all of it. All I'm going to do now is just flip the stone. Do the same thing on the fine side. And I've conditioned this stone to a pretty coarse texture. This is a stone that's similar to the one I started out on. I had a silicon carbide stone that was very close to this one. I actually think it was a Norton crystalline, although it didn't have the label along the side. Now that I've learned how the Norton behaves and what it looks like, I'm pretty confident that's what it was. So it was a little higher quality than this one, but that's not to say this one's bad. This one is actually very, very good for the price. I've got a burr already built up. Looks like I still have the slightest recurve still going on in the base of the edge, but it's not too terrible. It was brought to my attention not too long ago that this particular stone, the Dan's Whetstone aluminum oxide, was no longer available, or rather it was out of stock at Blade HQ. I don't know if they quit carrying it or what. Looking on Dan's Whetstones website, the cost of it is much higher than what I paid. I don't know what is going on in that respect. If you're looking to get a hold of one of these, perhaps contact Blade HQ and ask them if they're going to continue to sell them, and if so, when they can expect a new shipment. The price, I believe, Dan's Whetstones website was charging was $35 or $45. I might be mistaken, but it was a lot more expensive on that website than what I paid. Like I said, it was under $10 when I got mine. And if that's what they're charging for it now, I'm not so sure I could recommend it. It is a fantastic stone, and it works on quite a few steels, especially the simpler stuff. But when you get into the high carbide steels like S30V or anything with 4% or higher vanadium, it doesn't work quite as well. And when you start getting on S90V and the like, it's pretty much useless. And I still got a nasty little spot right in the tip where the factory grind is showing, and I'll show that to you guys once we're done with everything. But it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get that out. It's just a low spot. Like a Norton India stone, this thing is hard. It almost feels like a ceramic. Lasts forever. Shouldn't dish on you, and if it does, it'll take quite a long time to do that. Now, as with anything, you know, it's going to be dependent upon use. If you're really hammering on the stone day after day, knife after knife, I'm sure you can make it dish. But just general use, your everyday person, I think it'll last you practically a lifetime. You might have to true it up once or twice during that time. So this is a washboard system. A guy on YouTube, I believe he goes by Newman 2000, he invented this thing. It's got ridges across it, which when you put sandpaper or copy paper on top of it, these little ridges underneath create tactile feedback, which is really good when you're sharpening, so you can hear and feel what your knife is doing. So what I'm going to do is get this piece of copy paper put on here, nice and tight. Just poking holes in the paper so these little feet will stick in it. I'm going to cut off this excess. Now I've got a perfect spot to strop on. And I'm just going to use my Sharpening strop compound, which costs roughly $8. Spread it across the top. Now if you don't have a washboard but you want to do something similar, all you've got to do is take a piece of copy paper and just wrap it around a sharpening stone, like so. You get the same effect to a degree. The washboard, of course, gives you that tactile feedback, and the ridges may help a little bit in removing the burr, but for the most part you get the same effect. Alright, now that I got the compound on it, it's ready to go. I'm just going to strop like I normally would, and you can see right away metal's coming off. The nice thing about this, if I go over angle or under, it makes a really loud noise. It lets you know you're doing it wrong. One problem I did find using this though, these little ridges can cause striations in the polish. If you want to get rid of those, try alternating the angle of approach. So if you're doing angles like this, maybe shorten them up or widen them. Get as many different angles on the knife as possible, and that will help blend all that striation in. So another thing you can do, especially with the compound that Newman sells, it has multiple grit layers to it. So once you've done your stropping on your main surface, you can then take a paper towel and really rub the compound. Any large pieces will either come off or get deeply embedded in the paper, and you're just left with smaller particles, which will give you an even finer edge. This works particularly well if you're making your own stropping compound out of, say, the slurry from your stone or a Nagara stone. And I'm pretty much done here. I'm just playing at this point. If you wanted to go one more step, you could remove the paper with compound on it and go with just plain copy paper and burnish the edge. And of course you're using paper here, so that does have a tendency to happen. That also has a tendency to happen on sandpaper, so just be careful. And the final result. It's got quite a bit of polish going on, and you can see some of the striations from that washboard system. Nothing too terrible. And if you were to just run it across a piece of leather a few times, you could probably pick up most of those. Now this is that area I was talking about in the tip where they've got a low spot from the factory. I was unable to grind down to that point. I'm sure if I hammered at it a little bit longer I would have got down to it, but I decided not to. I'll see this knife again in short order after my buddies used it. You can get a better shot of the scratch pattern on this side. You can see those striations from the strop. given the price of the knife, the price of the stones, it's not a bad edge. Well guys, as always, I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Y'all have a good one.